Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing a bit of a spicy one at the request of a donor today. This is a Nadu deck, but we are fundamentally a Golgari deck just splashing for Nadu. So we're kind of like, almost like a fairy rock deck. You know, we've got this NADU Zenith package with like Bristly bills and Scythecat Cubs, Keen-Eyed Curators, Endurance, Safekeeper, a whole bunch of things. And then we are just dipping lightly into blue to get this Nadu and this Leovold in. Obviously, if we're going to be trading resources with our like black spells, so our Fatal Pushes, our Sheoldred Edicts, our Thoughtseize, and then we can gas up with the Nadu, then that should serve us quite well. So we've got a nice selection of silver bullets here. We don't even have a basic iron, that's how little we're dipping into the blue. We do have a lot of colourless lands here. We've got 3 Wastelands and 2 Urza Saga, which might be quite a lot if we're trying to cast 3 colours worth of spells. You know, we've got Leovold and stuff in here, and there's double pips on the Endurance and things. However, Once Upon a Time should smooth it out, and obviously the donors played this deck a fair bit, so they've got some reps in and made the mana base work, but that's just something I'm going to be looking out for when I'm playing this one. Sideboard-wise, we've just got a lot of the good tools in our colours. So, we've got some more removal of like Dismembers and Snuff Outs. We've got Graveyard Hate in Fairy Macabre, Endurance, then something we can grab off of the as a Saga. We've got Epiphany also for the Saga. A nice Collector Ouphe that we can tutor for with our NADU Zenith, which is always nice to have. Force of Vigor to blow up a random bunch of artifacts and enchantments. A one-of Emrakul, which we can sometimes show and tell in that matchup, but mainly this is going to be for the Painter matchup. Then we've got Disruptor Flute as a nice catch-all if we need to interact with like Doomsday or whatever. So yeah, we're trying to pair this Nadu with a Shuko, but generally just playing fair magic until that happens with like a nice little NADU Zenith package. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out. I do quite like a nice fair deck that has an unfair pivot somewhere in it. So this should be right up my alley. And I'm no stranger to casting cards off of Bayous. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's just get right into this one and see how it goes. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. Okay, we can keep this. This is a turn 2 Nadu, and then we're working towards the Shuko off the Saga. Our Nadu will also be uncounterable, and we get to play on basics. A Tundra, so we might see something like a Swords to Plowshares on our Halfling. We could also see something like a Daze on it, or potentially a Stifle on this fetch land. Okay, we didn't get Stifle on the fetch land. Is this going to be Brainstorm into the Daze? Because if they have a counter spell they're trying to save for something big, they have to burn it on this if they don't have removal. So they're going to Brainstorm first, see if they can find the removal, so they don't have to spend counter magic on this. If our opponent does cast a Daze, okay, that's fine. So we will need to find some blue mana at some point for the Nadu. But if our Halfling is getting countered, we don't just want to run our Nadu out anyway. I do think we're better off getting the basic in. So our opponent's still got a Tundra in hand, so I used a fetch here to shuffle the 1 card from the Brainstorm. A Tamiyo. Sure. Once Upon a Time. So we have some options here. We can just go play Saga, cast Once Upon a Time. I think that seems fine here. We want to Thoughtseize before we try and resolve a spell. We just work towards some Saga constructs. And this also gets us a Shuko. The Once Upon a Time should find it's a blue source of the Nadu, and then we're sort of in because we can use the Thoughtseize to punch a hole. And then we can just draw more cards than our opponent can keep up with. Doesn't look like our opponent's doing unfair things in their deck. I suspect they're probably somewhere around Dreadnought or like a blue-white control shell, possibly Jeskai. I will take this Misty Rainforest. I will sandbag the Misty Rainforest for now because we have to get a non-basic and I don't want to be wastelanded off of it. Just ticks up. I'll deploy a Swamp. So we can make a guy, make a Shuko, and then we've got Thoughtseize plus the mana to Nadu with a Shuko in play. Doorkeeper Thrall. So we are looking at Dreadnought. How bad is this turn going to be for us, I wonder? This is going to hit some of our creatures. Yeah, we only have a 1-2 non-flyer. Sorry, a 1-1 non-flyer, so we can't block that 1-2 flyer. We've got something to go with this Doorkeeper Thrall. Right, don't have a Dreadnought, that would be nice. They didn't have a Dreadnought, that's excellent. Alright, let's make a construct here. So we have an option here of trying to send the Nadu, or we can just make more constructs. Let's just see what we draw and see if that changes anything. If we send the Nadu, it will draw us 2 cards for each creature we have. So that will draw us 4 cards. Do I think a Thoughtseize is enough to punch a hole? I think it is. So we're going to get Shuko. We will Thoughtseize first. Our opponent could have a Stifle, though they might have stifled the tutor there. So they might not have a Stifle. Okay, Force of Will, Daze, Null Drifter, Plow. Interesting. If we take the Daze, they don't have a blue card for this at all. We only get 1 card because of the Plow on the Nadu, though. It's actually like a slightly awkward situation for us. So we can get our Nadu in right now, but they'll Plow it. Alternatively, we take the Daze, put in the... Oh, we can't put in the Leovold because we've got colourless mana. Interesting. Because I don't really want them to have this Null Drifter either, because we don't have that many ways of dealing with it. Are we just supposed to try and grind through what our opponent's doing here? So we get 2 cards. If we take the Daze, we put the Nadu in, we get 2 cards, and then we're going to have to answer this Null Drifter. Looking at our deck, how do we answer a Null Drifter? Sheoldred's Edict isn't going to cut it. The Dismember will, but we only have 1 of them. The Grist can do it. I think we have to take the Null Drifter here, as annoying as that is. So we probably want to offer up... I guess I didn't really want to offer up anything here. I wish I'd have made a token now. I don't really want to offer up something to the Daze. Yeah, that is awkward for us. We should have Thoughtseize before playing the Misty Rainforest as well, because we could have got our Surveil land out of the way here. I was worried about something like Spell Pierce just having more mana up for something like that, but that doesn't really work very well for us. Okay. Yeah, our sequencing last turn wasn't very good. If we'd have played the Underground Mortuary first. Tundra over there. Getting an attack in. We only have the 1 Surveil land, so there's no point cracking this. Drawing a card off the clue. Okay, so we can offer up something to the Force in a second. Or I guess we'll probably be offering up to the Plow. So we can try and junk this Tamiyo using Endurance. That might get us back in the game. Yeah, they're drawing a lot of cards though. We could also try and junk the Doorkeeper Thrall so they can't get a Dreadnought into play. Kind of more scared of Dreadnought than anything else. I don't want to attack in with the Doorkeeper Thrall here. We'll go and get ourselves a Trop here. Green, green 1. Let's see if we can have an Endurance. So we can pay for Daze, but they're probably just going to Plow this. And then they have to spend another piece of interaction on the Leovold, and then the Nadu sticks, and then we win. That is the plan here. Okay, it's Plow. In comes a Tamiyo. Orcish Bowmasters. I quite like that, but it's not going to be... What am I casting right now, is it? I think we'll get in with an attack first. Address down. So this will kill our construct token. Do I think our opponent has another Plow? Let's get this Underground Mortuary going first. We should have cracked this fetch hand first, actually. It doesn't matter in the end. I think I'm going to cast this Leovold out. If they have a Plow now, then they can kill this. But otherwise, this is going to give them something they have to answer. Okay, Force pitching a Tamiyo. So this is one of the things we wanted to happen. We wanted to get the Force out of their hand so that the Nadu can stick. They're going to have 4, potentially 6 cards in hand if they're cracking all the clues. They should attack with both creatures this time. The Nadu isn't going to draw us the most amount of cards. But we do have a Dryad Arbor, which can add an additional creature. Right, are we just going to see the Tamiyo flipping here? A Wasteland. Okay, they're just cracking a clue. Flipping the Tamiyo. So next turn, this can get back a Plow. And they've shut our Endurance off with the Doorkeeper Thrall, so it's a little bit tricky. That is a Dreadnought. Okay, we're on enough life that we can survive with 1 Dreadnought hit. Let's crack this and go and get ourselves... I think it's a Trop. Okay, so blue, green, black. Do you have another Force there, opponent? They do have another Force. That's pretty devastating. Do we have anything we can shoot to 4 that can deal with a Dreadnought? We have a Grist for next turn. Okay. This kind of sucks because it's just a 1-1. But we need to get our creatures in play. So we're going to take 13. Then we can Grist away the Dreadnought. And then we have to worry about our opponent killing us with a Doorkeeper Thrall. Alright, well, 2 extra life here is useful. But they can just go and get back a Force and sit on it. Or they can go and get back a Plough and sit on that. So they're getting back the Plough. So probably Plough or Dryad Arbor in response to us making the Grist. So I don't think we get to win this one. Yeah, I wish we'd have made tokens earlier. Instead of making our attempt at the Nadu then. They just had a really awkward selection of cards. Right, they're going to waste away our Dryad Arbor instead of using a Plough on it. That makes sense. So we need to draw a cheap creature. This isn't going to work because they'll just sacrifice the other one. Yeah, tough. I definitely think we could have played that one slightly differently in a few spots. Our opponent did have a lot of tools, and they just kind of ran away with the Tamiyo stuff, which is a bit annoying for us. So what do we want to do here? Snuff outs kill their guys, so that seems quite important. Force of Vigor can kill their stuff too if we want it. I don't think I want Collector Ouphe here. I like the Pit Needle for their Tamiyo. What do I not like here? So Fatal Push is good. Like Dismember kills their other guys, so I think Dismember is fine. How much do I want Thoughtseizes in a matchup like this? We're also boarding in a load of cards that don't interact with our Once Upon a Time. So maybe we could trim back on those, even though it kind of is a thing we need to get going. Alright, let's have a look at our removal suite. So then we can bash in these Snuff Outs and this Dismember. We're just trying to answer their stuff that way. So maybe we don't need the Thoughtseizes. Safekeeper does look good. The Delighted Halflings look good. This isn't really a matchup where we're going to be wastelanding our opponents. We could probably trim a Wasteland out of the deck. We don't want to take too many because obviously we need mana in our deck, but I think it's okay to trim one. We don't really need Graveyard Hate. Keen-Eyed Curator versus Endurance. I think the Keen-Eyed Curator is better here. So we get rid of these two. Do we need all of these Force of Vigors? Probably not, just a couple. Just as some extra insurance against the Dreadnought. They might also have something like a Grafdigger's Cage to mess with our Green Sun Zenith. So it might be worth keeping a couple of forces in. Alright, we're going to give this a go. Okay, this gets us somewhere. Orcish Bowmasters is a really weird one in this matchup because they can really do a lot of stuff that gets around it. Like not getting the initial ping can be really annoying for us for sure. And they probably don't care about Brainstorm getting shut off that much because they're just going to play around the Bowmasters because we're not really able to hold up much else. If we have a Bowmaster, it's going to be very obvious because we're playing at sorcery speed a lot. Do I want to play out a Shuko right now? I think so. The other option is getting a Surveil Land, but I just like having the basics. So yeah, so with our deck, the Bowmaster is going to be more telegraphed than a blue deck that maybe interacts on their turn a bit more. So the Bowmaster is going to be very easy for our opponent to play around. And a lot of these Dreadnought decks now are running Ancient Tomb alongside the Stock-Ups and Torpor Orbs. I'm not sure if our opponent's doing that because we saw Wasteland and it's hard to fit both in. So that is a thing to consider here. Would I like to have a Delighted Halfling around a Daze? I think I would. Let's make it a 2-2. So next time we can play Bristly Bill uncounterably and then start stacking counters on stuff. Alright, they're ploughing our guy, so our spells will be counterable. If we have a Saga, then maybe the Bowmasters can be a bit more of a surprise. Obviously, we can still just play at sorcery speed and try and shut some stuff off. But I'd rather play this around a Daze. Like, our opponent was holding up Plough / Brainstorm last turn. It seemed pretty obvious to me that they could interact with whatever we were doing. Right. We've seen Wastelands out of our opponent's deck. Does that mean I'm getting a Surveil Land here or not? I think we want to be able to cast our spells, so I'm not going to use this. Pitting Needle. It's kind of awkward with the Bristly Bill here because we want to play around a Daze, but also we also need to have the right mana here. So what we're going to do is when our opponent cracks this fetch, we're going to put the Bowmaster in. So we'll worry about the Bristly Bill in a bit. So they're going to go get Meticulous Archive here, and then we're going to fashion a Bowmasters. So our opponent's deck doesn't have a Bowmasters, which is normally one of the reasons you want to hold a Bowmasters in hand, so that you're not the first one playing out the Bowmaster and just getting it pinged off easy. Oh, red mana, that's interesting. Is this going to be for Pyroblasts for our Nadu, or is it just going to be for like some artifact hate? So we want to save this for a landfall trigger. A Misty Rainforest. Okay, so we'll play out Bill. How do you feel about Bill? Play out land. I'll put a counter on the Orc Army token because I think our opponent really wants to remove this Bowmasters. So our opponent could flash in something like a Doorkeeper Thrall, but we can grow the Bowmaster instant speed with our bill. It's going in Underground Mortuary, I think. I don't really want another land. It does allow us to get a Nadu around a daze, though. Alright. We'll keep that. I'm not going to crack this fetch. It's better to have the build triggers when we have a Nadu coming. So our opponent's going to play something large this turn. We're going to untap into Green-Eyed Zenith around days. Alright, so they're just going to plow this guy. That's fine. They don't have to worry about pings because, like I said, they've got lots of ways of getting around Bowmaster. Things like Dress Down do it quite nicely. If we see a Null Drifter, that's probably one of the worst. Because that's large and eats stuff. Well, obviously Dreadnought is a problem, but we've got a lot of answers. I guess we've got a lot of answers to everything. We just need to draw them, which hopefully Nadu will do for us. I'm more concerned about the cards that this gets them because it means they're way more likely to have interaction with us. And they want to get this one down while our Bowmaster is shut off as well. That makes a lot of sense too. A Polluted Delta. Let's crack this. Go and get Tropical Island. We'll attempt a Green-Eyed Zenith around days. And we need to do something because this is just going to eat away at us pretty quick. I'm not expecting this to... Oh, it resolved. Huh. That is a bit of a shocker. Do they have a Pyroblast here? They do. A Dismember. Okay. It's something, isn't it? Let's go and get another drop so we can't be wasted off of it. Let's try and kill this little Null Drifter. Alright. Game on. So even though they answered our Nadu, because they didn't answer on the stack, we ended up with 2 free cards out of it. So that was a pretty poor exchange for our opponent. Prismatic Ending. They want to get rid of our Bow Boys. Sure. So we have a bunch of draws that just send us into the stratosphere, like if we have another Nadu or if we have a Green-Eyed Zenith. They clearly don't have counter magic really, so... Obviously they just shake their hand with a Brainstorm, so maybe they do now. But the previous turn did not seem that way. Alright, Scythecat Cub. This has some pretty interesting synergy with this Golgari token that already has tokens on it. A Dress Down. Okay. So we don't get to make any landfall triggers this turn. We still get to crack for 3. Is it important to me to Pithy Needle something here? So Pithy Needling the Tamiyo is something we can do, but I don't really need to do that yet. I don't care about Wasteland at this point. We've got a lot of lands in play. A Ponder. They shuffle off the Ponder. That's a good sign. A Doorkeeper Thrall. This doesn't stop our landfall. Dreadnought, on the other hand, that is a bit of a problem. And depending on the Shuko, so we can't just draw a Nadu. Now we can draw a Nadu and do Scythecat Cub stuff. We've got a land that we've been sandbagging. A Tamiyo. We can at least answer that one. Well, we can answer the backside. We kind of need to wait for it to flip weirdly. Once upon a time. Alright. It's got to be good. It can't find us an answer. It can find us a Nadu though. Our opponent has no cards in hand, so we do get the Nadu in. So we're going to pump up the Orc army here so we can try and get something that's big enough to work for what we require. We go and get a green source here. We can play the Sylvan Safekeeper. So we'll double this creature. Maybe we can try and tangle with the Dreadnought at some point. Sylvan Safekeeper. We're going to... So we've already targeted this twice. We're going to target our Nadu. Okay, now we can snuff out this Dreadnought. And they've had enough because we're going to draw some more cards. Every land we hit gives us a ping from the Scythecat Cub and a ping from the Sylvan Safekeeper when we sack it. Alright, I like how we sideboarded just putting in a bunch of answers to the thing that kills us. And eventually we'll trade 1 for 1 like we said we would in the intro. And then at some point we'll stick a Nadu and then just go over the top. Because Nadu is quite the Magic the Gathering card. Okay, I'll keep this. I do like a nice Once Upon a Time. We're going to have to play on non-basics, I think, here. Tamiyo is pretty good. I like the Halfling. Let's have a little Once Upon a Time first. I will put this Nadu in my hand. I'll play this. We'll go and get a Bayou. And we'll deploy the Halfling. No response from our opponent. So putting the Nadu in is fine. If they remove it, we get a card back, but I would like to have something to go with the Nadu if possible. So maybe we want to be doing some Orcish Bowmaster stuff and slowing our roll a touch. This is going to flip the Tamiyo, which maybe changes what we need to do here, because we're going to need to pressure this Tamiyo. Are they just going to wasteland us? I think it makes sense when they'll just tick up the Tamiyo here to hit our land and just stop us deploying anything. Our opponent agrees. I think that's the correct play, unfortunately for us. So this only taps for colourless mana unless we're casting a legend. So we can't wasteland our opponent as well. That is a problem. So we probably play out a land here. Okay, I think we're green thumbs anything for mana dork. Probably the Birds of Paradise here, just to help our colours. So we can actually cast the Orcish Bowmaster, because that is something we can use to fight against our opponent's Tamiyo activation if we end up in a weird situation. Okay, they're just returning the Brainstorm. So if we'd have had a black source, we could have dropped a Bowmaster. That would have been good. Feels like our opponent is struggling for land, perhaps. That's why they ummed over this Wasteland for a while and why they've been aggressively brainstorming like this. Oh, wow, they're conceding the game because they didn't hit a land. Okay, I'll take it, and we got the match. I think we should have played the first game a little bit differently. I should have gone a little bit more into the fair route, just get our constructs underneath us. That sort of plan. That would have been better, I think. But we brought it back in the other games. I think we have a lot of tools to beat up on a deck like this. Alright, let's go to round 2. The lovely people over at 3for1 Trading are doing a spring sale from May 7th to May 12th. Get 5% off of all orders over $500 with free worldwide shipping by using the code SPRINGSALE25. Their support helps make this channel viable for me, so support them by clicking the link in the description of this video to browse their enormous inventory and find whatever you need for your Magic collection. Alright, we can once upon a time into Thoughtseize, that's not a bad turn 1. Underground Sea into Ponder. So we need to be thinking about Murktide Regent in terms of when we want to use our endurance here. Murktide Regent, obviously a pretty big game against us. Alright, let's cast this once upon a time. I do like a Nadu. I'll take a Nadu here. And I think we still have to Thoughtseize our opponent here. So we're going to be a little bit slower, but we don't know if our opponent is doing some busted combo stuff. They are doing busted combo stuff. So we can take out their Burning Wish. We can take out their Lion's Eye Diamond. I think it should be the Burning Wish here and just try and restrict them on action. Because obviously they've got a reasonable amount of mana going there. Yep. Here comes the Thoughtseize. We probably lose the Nadu. The Endurance. Okay, so I'll be going for some sort of Past and Flames line. Another Thoughtseize. I think that is better than casting anything else here. So we'll go for the Halfling. We'll go for the Thoughtseize. Interesting that our opponent didn't play out their land last turn. 2 Cabal Rituals. Interesting. Preordain is the thing that finds them action. I guess we just kind of need to strand them without anything to do. And that is our game plan here. They're getting close to threshold. Another Thoughtseize. Alright, we're just going to windmill each other's hands into the dirt. Alright, Bill. Alright, let's start putting damage on by pumping our Halfling here. Let's go and get this Underground Mortuary. It does shut us off of blue mana, but I think we just need to get something going. We can always use the Halfling if we draw the thing we want. This is worth 2 damage. We already have a land. I think I'd rather find something a bit more explosive. Yeah, so we can already use the Halfling for mana if we need to. And I think getting the Surveil there and trying to dig towards action makes more sense. Because they're not really going to interact with our creatures here. An island surveilled by our opponent. Nothing there. It makes sense to keep making our Halfling bigger, because then when we activate the double ability, it ends up doing more work for us. We're not expecting our creatures to die here. So we hit our opponent for 6 this turn. So we do have them dead next turn. I guess splitting the counters doesn't really make a difference. It doubles the number on each creature you control. It's not like Scythecat Cub where it only doubles one of them. Alright, so we're going for a Cabal Ritual. You have some manas. Have some more manas. You have an LED. They have a Chromox. Is this going to be a Beseech the Mirror now? Tendrils of Agony. Okay, it's a little tendrils so they don't die. That's not the end of the world for us. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 10 drills. A land is pretty good here for us. Fetch land is very good. A Grist to Hunger Tide. That's not a land. So we could double the counters here to get us +3 damage. But then we're hitting for what? 6, 7, 8, 9. So we will kill them next turn anyway. So I guess we just attack with everything. Make our opponent brick for 1 turn, hopefully. We just plus this. Gets us another little friend. Alright, well, a couple of Thoughtseize managed to do the job there. We've got some nice tools in this matchup, I think. So, obviously, I like the Thoughtseize a lot. I like the Collector Ouphe. I think the Endurances have text here, because our opponent's going to be trying to do Gaia's Will lines. I think the Disruptor Flute is useful. I don't think Silent Gravestone is the one here. I think the Force of Vigors have some use. Removal spells are no good, so let's put those to one side. I don't think the Grist is very good here either, so that can go. Do I like Leovold here? It'll let us draw a bunch of cards and they target us with their win condition. And it makes Thoughtseizers a bit more awkward. But I don't really think this is the sort of tool we're supposed to be leveraging in this matchup. The Bowmasters is fine. The Wastelands can curtail our opponent's mana. We don't need the Sylvan Safekeeper, they're not going to be targeting our stuff. Alright, I think we've deduced the correct loadout for this one. Let's go. We can't actually cast our spells here, so this is a no. I guess they will target our creatures a little bit in terms of the Collector Ouphe. They'll probably bring in something to deal with that. Okay, a Thoughtseize and some Graveyard Hate. I guess we sling back a land. We have 0 defense against turn 1. Well, that's not true. We can stop a Gaia's Will turn 1 line. Alright, we're getting Thoughtseized. What are they going to take? Probably our Thoughtseize, I would imagine. There it goes. Depending on if we draw a land or not, depends on whether we play this Polluted Delta out. Alright, Collector Ouphe is one of the cards that we have been looking for. So a very good rip, especially not having it in our opener so our opponent couldn't discard it. Can't wait to get this in Old Border. Surely it's only a matter of time. It looks so good in the classic Old Border. They pondered, they didn't shuffle, they didn't play a land. Right, let's go and get ourselves Underground Mortuary. Thoughtseize, that's pretty good. Is it as good as a Collector Ouphe? I think I'm going to play the mana efficient play of doing the Collector Ouphe here. So this shuts down a bunch of our opponent's lines and gives us some pressure. If we draw a fetch land next turn, that would be ideal. We could play the Bristly Bill, pump our Collector Ouphe, and Thoughtseize our opponent. I would take just a Bayou though. So artifact lines are off, graveyard lines are off. And they know that graveyard lines are off as well. Because they've seen the endurance in our hand. Okay, Brainstorm, no second land drop from our opponent, so no shuffle or anything here. This is an annoying situation, because I would like to Bristly Bill and pump, but we just don't have that luxury if we want to cast a Thoughtseize, which we definitely do. Okay, lots and lots of rituals into Infernal Tutor. Interesting. I don't really want them to have an Infernal Tutor and shuffle, but also we can't really beat his Tendrils right now, so I think we just have to take Tendrils. And I hope that's the only Tendrils they have in their deck. Alright, it is better to play out the Bristly Bill here, rather than save it, because this is 2 damage on its own next turn. So they can have a bunch of mana and tutor for whatever they want. But if they have a graveyard line, we can stop that. If this is the only Tendrils in their deck, which I suspect it is, I think they have one in the main and one in the sideboard. Because they are probably running Burning Wish. So they can tutor for the Burning Wish and get past in Flames, but then we can... Oh, okay, they're just Infernal Tutoring Revealing. Another Dark Ritual, okay. Mana is certainly not our opponent's problem here. Lines our Diamond, yep. Lotus Petal, yep. These don't activate, so that's something at least. Another Dark Ritual. Infernal Tutor. So if they have a Tendril, they can get us here. If they have a Beseech the Mirror, they can probably get us somehow. And Ad Nauseam. Do I want to shuffle in the 4-drop? I don't think so. Right, let's see what they're revealing here. Surgical Extraction, Thoughtseize, Cabal Ritual. None of these do anything right now. It's very hard for them to get additional mana here. They haven't played land drop, which is one of the things. Wow. They just died to that without finding another piece of starting mana. Okay, I think we got a little bit lucky there. But we do have some tools in this matchup. Like, Collector Ouphe is a big deal. Thoughtseize on turn 1 is pretty handy. And shutting off the graveyard, also useful. I'll take the match win and move on to round 3. Thoughtseize, a removal spell into Nadu. This is okay. We're going to need a little bit of help, but we've got a Surveil land we can reach for if we don't mind cutting ourselves off of Nadu mana. I think Hedge Maze would be really good in this deck. Consider. Okay, our opponent's probably playing Doomsday. If we want to Thoughtseize our opponent, we need to get ourselves a Bayou. A Daze. Okay. I think our opponent has a Doomsday in hand. They don't have the fast mana to cast it. They might have a Cabal Ritual rather than a Dark Ritual. Right, in comes the Sewers. Unless they just really want... They've got some pieces that are useful. They just want to have access to another Surveil. Alright, we're playing a weird game now. Let's just take them off of mana. I'm enjoying this pause where they don't have a land. Ah, there's a land. How lucky. Okay, I'm going to... I think I'm going to play this Wasteland. That way our opponent can't get a Surveil land at end step. Next turn we can deploy a Nadu if we think that's the correct thing to do. A Lotus Petal. It feels like we're going to get Doomsdayed. And let's see how long it takes our opponent to do a pile. They've already got 2 lands in play, so it's relatively easy for them to do so. Are they going to play around us having an additional Wasteland? Because if we can draw another one, then we can take them off of both lands. We only have 1 left in our deck to draw. But that's the sort of level of thing that I would like to draw at this point. They could also just win this turn. Thassa's Oracle going into their pile, not a shocker. They also can do this and it lets us not know if they have 2 in their deck. Whereas if they don't select the one in the graveyard, maybe... Alright, so they selected the Consider. So I'll just finish my previous thought. So if they don't select the one in the graveyard, it lets us know they have 2 in total. Which is a piece of information they don't have to give up for free. Okay, we're going to need something good here. That's not good. So they've obviously played a pile that gets around this Wasteland. So I'm not going to Wasteland them here. Unless they're playing mind games with us. But I think we just have to go with the Nadus. Maybe our opponent will respect counter magic when they see blue. And that would change the way sideboard when we're not running counter magic. So that's a little useful thing of showing our opponent the blue mana here. They should be able to win now. They're going to Consider. That gets rid of something. Then they can just cycle. Lines like Diamond. Deep Analysis in the graveyard. Alright. A bit of an older line. You don't see that often. But this allows them to draw the Cavern and the... Okay, they didn't get a Cavern. But now they're probably going to try and play with Caverns. To stop. To interfere with us. Okay, so we'll disrupt a Flute. We're going to name Doomsday with this. We would like this Thoughtseize in. The Collector Ouphe sometimes has text. The Endurance sometimes has text. Nothing else here really matters. We would like to board out some Graveyard Hate and Removal, I think. So this isn't Graveyard Hate, this is putting cards back in the library, which is why it's different. So we don't need the Keen-Eyed Curator here. Let's list all our removal and then work out how much of it gets to get taken away. Because obviously our opponent can pivot here. Let's also move these Grists over here. Leovold is very good here though. So I think... These 3 are the first cuts, and then we take 2 from this pile. So Sheoldred's Edict will kill their, whatever their one big monster is. Do I want to have a Sylvan Safekeeper? It can just turn sideways, which is relevant here. We'll keep 2. It's 2 removal spells if they pivot into Barragoyf enough. I think we can just overcome Barragoyf with the power of Nadu. I think it's what they're doing. I don't think they should pivot off of Doomsday, because Doomsday is just inherently very good against a deck that looks like ours. Thoughtseize is good, Birds is good, Halfling's good. Yeah, this hand looks pretty tasty. We probably want to fire off the Thoughtseize on turn 1 so they can't protect with a Brainstorm. It does mean that we're going to have a pretty awkward looking turn 2, but it might be the thing that stops us dying on turn 1 or 2. So this has to be a Bayou so we can cast all of our spells. Let's fire in with a Thoughtseize here. Deep Analysis, Dark Ritual, Edge of Autumn, Ponder. I think the obvious take here is the Ponder. Make it harder for them to find stuff. If they just immediately rip into a Doomsday and Dark Ritual Doomsday turn 1, then so be it. But they're trying to find a 4 of in their deck. If we can restrict their ability to find specific cards, I think that is the correct line. Tundra is interesting as well. Okay, so they're showing us a Flooded Strand. This is so they don't get wastelanded. I will play out this Dryad Arbor. I will play out this Birds of Paradise, I think. This just gives us more flexibility with our mana for casting other spells. So this is going to be a Surveil land now that we didn't play a Wasteland. They left a card on top. That's terrible news for us. Dark Ritual. They got the Doomsday? They've got the Doomsday. We know the cards in their hand, though. So this Endurance might be able to get the job done. So what is their pile going to look like? They have an Edge of Autumn and a mana up. So they probably have a Brainstorm in their pile. They Edge of Autumn into the Brainstorm, cast the Brainstorm, and then they go for a Lion's Eye Diamond line, which gets blown out by an Endurance pretty hard because they won't have many cards in hand. They've already got the Deep Analysis as well, so they can draw through their pile very quickly here. So they did find a turn 2 win through our Thoughtseize, but maybe the Endurance can cheese it. I wonder if they can play around it. They could take a slightly slower pile because they're not under any threat here. Although we are kind of representing a Nomads or Shuko based Nadu Combo. Obviously we don't have the Nomads, but our opponent doesn't know that. Did they pivot here? No, they're just a Jace build of Mystery to Fairy build. Sure. Should have looked at that after game 1 really, but it doesn't really change how we're sideboarding. Oh, there goes the Edge of Autumn. Here's a Lion's Eye Diamond, like we said. They crack this. This puts a Deep Analysis. So they get to Deep Analysis with 2 cards in their library. I'm trying to work out if we Endurance now and slow them down. I don't think slowing them down works. I think we have to just beat them with this Endurance. So if we slow them down, they can still go pretty fast. Can I Endurance you? Is the other card they have a piece of counter magic? No. Can they win? They might have put a second Oracle in there. The way they did this pile suggests to me that they probably have a second Oracle. We know there's a Lion's Eye Diamond in there. They're probably going to want to leverage. So I think we get a Trop here. And I guess we cast a Leovold here, actually. If they had a counter spell, they would have fired it off on the Endurance and just won the game. All right, let's get the Leovold. This stops our opponent from being able to do very much. They will not be able to empty their library while we have a Leovold because this says each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. And then if we draw a fetch land, we can Scythecat Cub and get a decent attack in here. Right, I will attack with this Leovold. I can take 1 hit. Then we can play the Collector Ouphe. And then we're threatening to kill our opponent next turn. Can they draw enough things? They cannot. Okay. So now they've seen that we're very creature-based. How do I feel about that? We've already got the Safekeeper in. I think that's fine. So you can have removal for the Oracle if they go for a half deck pile, but I don't think that's actually a good way to play the game. Our opponent being on the draw, sorry, on the play, and us being on the draw is not a great... I believe in the power of this Once Upon a Time to fix us up. Orcish Bowmasters, a very good card in the matchup. Thoughtseize. I would like to cast Once Upon a Time first. I will take this land. So they're going to take the Bowmasters, I suspect. I'm still keeping a couple of Sheoldred's Edict in just in case our opponent does pivot into a creature after we manage to shut them down with Leovold. I took the birds, interesting. I don't mind drawing a Delighted Halfling. Yes, our opponent will have perfect information, but we get a Halfling so we can start accelerating our way out of this game. Okay, so we've got a Bowmasters, which is very good, but our opponent didn't take it, which means they probably have either more ways of interacting with this or a pile in mind that beats it. Okay, so here's the other way of interacting with this. This is going to take the Bowmaster this time, surely. There it goes. Thoughtseize. I do like a Thoughtseize here. Should we just get the Nadu in, though? I think I want to get the Nadu in. Opponent didn't go last turn. We need to get something going here. It's an uncounterable Nadu as well. Undercity Sewers. Milling over land. Okay, so next turn we Thoughtseize. Hopefully it wasn't a mistake to play the Nadu here, but pressuring your opponent's life total when they're a Doomsday deck is really important. So if they're still cantripping here, maybe we get another turn. If we get to untap, I think the odds of us winning are pretty high. Well, if we get to untap without our opponent casting a Doomsday, I should say. If they cast a Doomsday this turn, I think we lose. They'll go down to 7. We've only got 4 damage. To our ritual, okay. So the Thoughtseize might not have even found anything relevant here. Because they might have just had it on top with the Brainstorm. It feels like they brainstormed into it here. Because they could have gone last turn. They know we have this Endurance, so they're going to take a pile that can maybe beat the Endurance. Now, obviously, we can't cast this Endurance. They don't know that because this card is a mystery to our opponent. And would we play this out if we needed our green card for Endurance? We'll see. Now, if our opponent just goes here and has us, then sure, we lose. But I took the choice that our opponent was doing a relatively slow approach, that we could go this way. Okay, so they have Bowmasters of their own in. It's the only creature. We can probably work out their pile, but if they're just going here, we lose. Okay, so they have the Deep Analysis in hand again. So they draw some cards. They should be able to win this turn. And we don't have the green for the Endurance here. Yeah, that's game. Alright, maybe if we Thoughtseize there, we don't lose that turn, but maybe we still lose because it felt like they brainstormed into the Doomsday there. And I needed to just get the pressure in, because if you just give this deck enough time, it will win if you're not pressuring it. So I figured we had to pressure it. But maybe the fact that we pressured it in a way that took us off of the Endurance, maybe that was too risky. But I thought we had a little window there. Definitely could have played that one differently. It might not have mattered, it might have mattered. It's impossible to tell at this point. But it's just worth highlighting it. Alright, let's go to round 4. Let's hope Urza's Saga's good. That's what this hand tells us. Am I okay with that? I think I'm okay with that. We've also got Once Upon a Time. So we've got a reasonable amount of action that we can hope for. Bowmasters or Nadu. I'll take a Nadu here. Kind of tells our opponent what's up. Let's just get this Underground Mortuary in. Oh, Bowmasters, the other card I was tempted to get. So next turn we have Urza Saga Bowmasters. That's a pretty good turn. And then we're working towards Shuko, where we can jam the Nadu, and then they'll counter it, and then we can Green Sun Zenith up another Nadu and win. That is the plan. A Wasteland. Alright, we're just going to go back to square one. That's acceptable enough. Play a fetch land and pass. I'm not going to respect Stifle. We also don't necessarily know what we need to fetch with this just yet. An island. I don't think I've ever seen this island before. Kind of cool. Little racetrack. They didn't shuffle off the Ponder. I'm not going to crack this. We don't have another Surveil land, and I don't know what land we want to fetch for this. A Bayou. Okay, so now we know that we can fetch a Trop, but it becomes awkward if we're doing that because we want to cast our Bowmasters. Not having an Underground Sea in this deck is costing us a little bit. I think we're just going to grind constructs here. Wasteland suggests our opponent is on a fair deck. The more constructs we have, the better Nadu is as well. Underground Sea. Bowmasters. Sure, that's fine. I'm not 100% in love with the timing on that. Let's crack this and go and get a Trop. I don't think I want to trade here. I think our bodies are better because they're going to grow. If they have another Bowmasters, that would make sense because then they can Bowmaster this construct down. Also makes the attack make more sense because they could Bowmaster our token down. Goodbye construct token. But I think we got time to just leverage our Sagas and things here. Play another Saga, holding up a Dismember if we want it. Goodbye little friend. So they can't really attack with the Bowmasters, just the Orc army. A little bit worried about Kaito. I think we can go over the top of a Kaito. A Fatal Push. Sure. Goodbye, friend. I think I want to kill this Orc army now. If they have a counterspell for our Dismember here, it sucks, but then it also means that they're wasting their counterspell on a Dismember. So this will save us. Well, this is going to be cost neutral unless they Data. Okay. But this makes us way more likely to resolve a Nadu, I think. I do think we're supposed to just leverage constructs here. We've been missing on lands a little bit, so I am just going to fire this off now. Another Orcish Bowmasters. Okay, that's pretty good. This Orc army is getting large now. So we have decisions to make now. So we can make a construct and put it in front of the Orc army and take 3 damage. I think that's okay. We do this now so it can trade. Maybe they attack with just the Orc army this turn. Attacking with everything. I think we trade off here. Just save ourselves a damage. So we can make another construct. I think we want to just keep making constructs. Like if our opponent's not playing spells, what do they have, right? They're going to have counter magic. This gets us a 4/4 now. At some point we'll draw another land. And that'll be fine. So they can attack us down to 2, and then next turn attack us down to 1. And then we'll be stuck on 1, and then if they find another Bowmasters or reanimate or something, then we lose. But I think we might have stopped their attacks now, we'll see. Alright, they're not going for it. Keen-Eyed Curator. That stops the potential Murktide Regent, and is quite large. I think we're going to play this. I think this is something our opponent has to interact with. A daze. Sure, that is not a surprise our opponent has, but this also keeps a Murktide Regent out of play for longer until we're ready to deal with it. A Bristly Bill. How do I feel about Bristly Bill versus Bowmasters? I think I like the Bowmasters more. Let's fire this in. How many counter spells do you have, opponent? A daze. Sure. This is keeping our opponent off of Bowmasters. So at this point I'm expecting our opponent to have black spells and maybe something like a Murktide. A Brainstorm. Sure. This is obviously a very good find for our opponent. But they spent a lot of their resources. If we can draw a land, we can just send a Nadu and go from there. No second land drops. They've just got a bunch of spells, is what you're telling me. But we have 2 Nadus. We can't fire this in, really. Let's go for Green Zenith for 1. Let's get ourselves an uncounterable Nadu. So you have to counter this, I think. A daze. Okay, all 4 dazes. Thoughtseize when we're on 4 life feels sketchy because they can attack and kill us. Ponder, and if we Thoughtseize, try and take the counter spell, and they have 2 counter spells, then we're just completely dead. So they didn't shuffle, but they also didn't play a land. This game is weird. Once upon a time. That's not what I'm about right now. Can I have a Green Sun Zenith again? We got Force of Will this time. We've gone through all 4 dazes. So right, here comes a Force, pitching a Tamio. At some point, we're going to draw a land and just start casting 3-drops. That's going to be good. Maybe play the Grist first. Pop out a graveyard and have a little look. Because that just gives us more and more bodies to keep us safer and safer, and just has the Murktide covered. Our opponent will have to answer it. So no Murktide this turn. As a surprise. Alright, we're getting an attack, so are we? Don't like this very much. Have they got their 4th Bowmasters? Could be. A Bayou. So do we just play the Nadu here? It's the highest upside. I think that's what we do. We don't have to worry about days anymore because they've played 4 of them. I'm going to start doing the Nadu nonsense. Have you got an answer right now? Fatal Push. Okay, so we draw a Sheoldred's Edict off of that. And we drew a Thoughtseize off of that one. It's getting tight over there. If they've got their 4th Bowmasters, we will lose here. Or a Reanimate does it as well. Or a Fatal Push, sure. Yeah, our opponent just operated on 1 land the whole time. And there's a few turns where if we'd have got more mana, we might have been able to double spell. But it didn't work out. What do I not like here? I like removal spells, like Dismember, more than Thoughtseize. I like Endurance against their Murktide Regents. I don't like the Thoughtseizes. That's a pretty clean 3 for 3 right there. Just slightly up on removal, some big bodies that can win the battles in the mid-game. I don't think we need these things. We haven't seen any reanimation stuff from our opponent. Although with Troll Band, it's a lot harder to work out if you're playing against a reanimator deck because you don't get any like warning of them like fetching their swamp or anything that they're reanimated. It's just you're just happily playing this game against Tempered and all of a sudden they entomb reanimate and you die. Sure. Delighted Halfling, pretty good. I think we need to fetch a Bayou here, which is certainly not free to do. So if they counterspell this and then Wasteland us, we're in trouble. It's very unlikely they Wasteland us while we have a Mana Dork. That's generally not the sort of play you have unless your hand is a bit clunky, and that's like maybe the only way that you can play it. Alright, we're seeing a coloured source rather than a Wasteland. We get Thoughtseize, or are they pondering? It's going to be one of the 2. Oh no, it's a Fatal Push. Let's Zenith here. Can get ourselves a Delighted Halfling, I think. Or a Birds. Birds dies to Bowmasters, so I'm more inclined to get the Halfling. Wow, Force of Will on a Green Sun Zenith for 1. This is probably because they don't have any more removal left, so they can't beat the Halfling. than just giving us whatever we want. We don't want to see a Wasteland this turn. That's a Wasteland. Are they going to fight off, or are they going to protect their own land? Alright, I guess we're going to garbage time here, where we're just going to Wasteland each other until nobody gets to play. Or somebody draws out of it. A Tamiyo, okay. I'm going to try and remove this. Alright, welcome to the Dirt opponent. It's turn 3, there's one permanent on the board. Classic Magic. Love it. Ooh, that dies to a Wasteland as well. Although if we draw something, we might be inclined to play a spell instead. An Urza's Saga. That kind of makes me not want to get rid of this Wasteland. If we find another land next turn, we can start cranking out Saga constructs, and then all of a sudden we're ahead in the game. Them not playing a Murktide Regent this turn is excellent news for us. Them playing a Wasteland, not so excellent news for us. Okay. Alright, into the dirt we go. This gives us way more time before a Murktide Regent comes down. And a lot of their other threats we can kind of just take on the chin. Like, obviously, Barragoyf again is going to be like a later threat. Look at this. A land. I would love to have one of those. It's a land. I'd rather not draw every single Wasteland in my deck. Even if it is a way that I enjoy playing Magic the Gathering. Come on, land. Nope. So this Bloodstained Mire can only get them a non-basic blue source, which is why we're at this weird stalemate for now. Okay. I did mention at the top that I thought there was a little bit too much in the way of colourless lands in this deck. And it has been a thing that we've run into a couple of times today. Alright, so they're going to go and get themselves a basic island, this gets them a basic swamp, and then we basically start the game over again. Tamiyo, pretty good. It feels like next time they're going to go for a brainstorm and then shuffle. Alright, we're just going to continue to not draw anything here. Oh dear, oh dear. And we're going to... We can shuffle and put these lands back in our opponent's deck here. We're going to crack this clue. I'm going to play a Bowmasters, aren't they? What do I pitch here? I kind of want to pitch the birds because it's really bad into Bowmasters. So we're going to have to discard anyway. So we're basically just going to reset their graveyard. This puts a bunch of lands back in the deck, but that stage of the game is gone now. It didn't work out for us. This just means that they can't Murktide us next turn, and it buys us time. A land. A land, you say? I think we go and get a black source here. And then if our opponent cracks this clue, instead we'll fire in a Bowmaster. We want to get it in this turn cycle anyway. A Bowmaster, you say? Now I'll fire our Bowmaster in, and it's going to get dazed because our opponent just loves having all these dazes. Sure. I just have to assume that at all points at all times, our opponent has 3 dazes in hand. Okay, so we can Sheoldred's Edict something, or Bowmasters. Bowmaster probably being better there. Or if they crack a clue now, so they don't have to worry about our Bowmaster. Baleful Strix. Pretty good. Tropical Island. Okay, I think we want to get the Bowmaster in first. This can take off some of the pressure. I think I want to ping the Baleful Strix. And then I will deploy this Delighted Halfling. Do you have another daze? Like, we need bodies in play. Alright, of course they have another daze. So, Leovold is getting close to being castable. The Sheoldred's Edict can take care of the Orc army token that they have. So probably bash with... Oh, they're bashing with everything here. I guess we're on quite a low life turn, aren't we? Do I need to block this other Bowmasters and just take it out? I don't like it, but I think we do have to do that. It's a shame they have all these clues over there. But our life total is so low because we bricked on land for too many turns. Polluted Delta. So we can deploy a Leovold. That's probably the best thing we have available. Okay, so we're going to get a Bayou here. Black, green, blue. If they have another Bowmasters, this gets really weird. Alright, they had a Force. So we go to 1 on this turn. And then we have an answer for the Bowmaster next turn. And they're just going to be in the Tamiyo zone here. And the Bowmasters kills us. Yeah, we kind of just got picked apart there. I think the mana base on our deck probably needs a slight tweaking. I feel that this matchup generally should be okay as long as we get to cast our spells, but that isn't really what happened there. Alright, on to the final round. We started out 2-0, and now we're 2-2, so let's see if we can finish with a positive. Yeah, I believe in Once Upon a Time to find us what we need. Many Green Sun Zeniths. Let's hope we're not playing against some sort of Dark Ritual out an opposition agent sort of deck. Polluted Delta. Let's Once Upon a Time. Delighted Halfling is okay here. I kind of just want another land. Let's take a swamp. Just go get a forest. Cast Green Sun Zenith. Let's go and get our Dryad Arbor. Just try and ramp out a little bit. I'm not expecting this to be like too amazing against what our opponent's doing, but I think just having access to more mana and we've got these big Green Sun Zeniths makes a lot of sense. But we are exposing ourselves to like a fatal push on the first turn cycle. But the upside, if they don't have it, is pretty strong. This is also sometimes a tempting Wasteland target, which means we can then get our Saga in without it getting wasted. We need to work out if our opponent is fair or unfair, though. If they're an unfair deck, then we need to go quicker. Okay, this is obviously one of the downsides of playing out a Dryad Arbor. So I'm getting the impression our opponent is more on the fair side of things. So it's going to be quite similar to the previous round. So let's get this as a Saga in. I will play a Shuko around the days now, so it's just in there. It means that when we start making constructs, they're going to be larger, which is really handy. And we've got nothing else to Green Sun for, so we're just going to pass it over. We don't draw extra cards, so we don't actually care about the enemy Bowmasters that much. But when it pings down our little guys and slowly clocks us and gives us less wiggle room to work with, that becomes annoying. We don't want to see a Wasteland here, obviously. If we can avoid the Wasteland, though, I think we're in an okay spot. Attacking becomes a little bit difficult for our opponent next turn. Thoughtseizing us. Our hand is pretty Thoughtseize resistant. So we effectively have 2 4-mana Nadus in hand. So I suspect they take one of the Zeniths. Oh, they took the Endurance. Interesting. Oh, they have the Wasteland. Yep. Okay, I think we're just going to get taken apart now. Quite far behind. Obviously, Nadu can fix pretty much any problem you have. Alright, Underground Mortuary, let's get you in now. Sure. We're just going to keep casting Green Sun Zenith until our opponent lets us Nadu. They know pretty much our whole hand here. They don't know about the Polluted Delta, but that's it. We can try and get like a Scythecat Cub and just have a big guy. I'm going to take a hit here. Let's see if our Green Sun Zenith resolves. It does not. This was not one that can find a Nadu though. So maybe the next one resolves. This was one to test interaction and pad our life total by having something that can block. Another Bowmasters. Sure. So that's what? 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. Alright, our next turn is going to have to be pretty good. I don't really want to dismember here. We don't have the life to do that. We go to 4 here. We need to have a big Nadu turn. Do you just happen to have a counter spell as well? Yep, that's us dead. Yeah, this blue-black matchup looks pretty bad. How do we approach it last time? We took out some Thoughtseizes, we boarded in some removal and some endurances, didn't we? I think that's fine. I don't know if I want to board in a Pithing Needle over a Wasteland, because by the time we get the Pithing Needle, it's going to be kind of too late anyway. If you know what I mean, we'd have already had our Saga run its course. So I think we're just going to roll like this. Now, we've still got Wastelands in here, but these Wastelands are mainly going to be additional colourless mana paying for days or paying towards Green Sun Zenith. Rather than like boarding them out and getting a Pithing Needle or something in like that. Sure, this one seems fine. We can't fully play on basics, but we have a lot of land. So we're not going to get downtrodden on that respect. So we're probably looking at turn 1 Undercity Sewers unless we find something good off this Once Upon a Time. These cards are all pretty good. I think we take the Nadu. We have a plan. I'm going to Thoughtseize and take our Nadu. Seems that way. So we got Surveil Land. Oh, I like a Scythecat Cub. Right, we'll try and do some Saga stuff. So Wasteland this, then we can obviously pivot into something else. If they play a creature this turn, we can Edict it. And a City of Sewers. Alright, not a Wasteland. Excellent. I would like to see our opponent play a Tamiyo right now. That we can then try and Edict away. Milling over force, interesting. You can see a... Is it going to be the Tamiyo? It is the Tamiyo. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature of their choice. Just worth dazing to your opponent? No. Alright, so now we're just in the Saga town. Our opponent hasn't been fetching... I suppose they haven't been fetching at all, actually. But our opponent in the previous game didn't play in a way that gave them the vibes they were doing Harbinger of the Sea stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe we're supposed to play out this land here just so we can do it, but I would like the ability to get our landfall triggers. 3 mana. This could just be a little baby Murktide. Still pretty big. It is still pretty big. Shuko. Let's go and get... I guess it has to be a trop here. And we'll deploy a Delighted Halfling. This gives us an uncounterable Nadu if we draw it, so we're playing to the higher upside. If this gets countered, it's not the end of the world either. Okay, our guys aren't quite big enough to beat the Murktide, but if they swing for 5, we get to swing for way more than 5. And if we do like Scythecat Cub stuff, we can really go big. We'll probably make this Keen-Eyed Curator quite large too. It's going to be a bit awkward taking our opponent's cards with this because they can pump the Murktide whenever they leave. Are you just swinging in here? They are swinging in. There's a 4-turn clock. We have a 3-turn clock. They get the first hit in though, but it should be okay if they don't have anything else here. Fatal Push isn't going to be the most useful thing, is it? They could play a Bowmasters here, ping the Delighted Halfling, and then block it. But, okay, they're just going to shoot the Sheriff instead. Constructs are not outlaws, it turns out. So this changes the damage quite a lot. I'm going to play a Keen-Eyed Curator, I think. So we've got enough stuff in our own graveyard. We've got Creature, Enchantment, Instant Land. Right, we're getting a Force of Will out of that, sure. Let's put this here. And I'm going to play a Birds of Paradise. So our opponent's out of cards. We can chump block for a turn with the birds if we want to. I don't really want to, but it's a thing we're allowed to do. Because Orcish Bowmasters exists, we're probably more incentivized to get this birds blocking sooner rather than later. Although this helps us get Nadu next turn. So I think we take this hit, the next hit, we put the birds under the bus. Once Upon a Time. Is that what we have to cast here? I think it is. Wasteland, Endurance, Nadu. I guess we put a Nadu in hand. That seems like a reasonable position for us to be in. But I'd rather have a Scythecat Cub or attack for 2 here. I should have attacked for 3. Alright, we're going to miss a point of damage here, which hopefully won't matter. But yeah, we should have moved the Shuko over first. I'm going to deploy the Kitty Cat. So if we have a land as well, we get to Nadu around a days, play a land, get a bunch of Nadu triggers, and pop off. Orcish Bowmaster here, obviously a bit of a pain for us. No Orcish Bowmaster end of turn. They can still Orcish Bowmaster here, and then they get 5 in. Brainstorm, pretty good. Okay, a bit more cantripping. So they could find a Murktide and do make their existing Murktide really large. Obviously, we're planning on blocking this turn anyway. Although this does represent more cards, but I think we just want to save our life here. We can always block with Nadu in following turns because we're going to have so many cards from this turn cycle about to happen. They did not shuffle. They're going to Thoughtseize and take our Nadu. That's really, really big deal. They're on 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need 2 fetch land. Sorry, we need a fetch land to kill our opponent here. We're also going to get fail pushed. They're pushing our cat. That's a big deal. So we block this turn so that we can not just be immediately dead to a Bowmasters next turn. Leovold is interesting. So blue, black, green. Which would have been better last turn, but okay. And then we can crash in for 4 here. If our opponent swings, we kill them on the backswing. Doesn't look like the 1 point of damage we missed is going to cost us right now, but we'll see. If they target any of our stuff, we get to draw cards. Orcish Bowmasters goes very strangely with Leovold, and they just top decked another Murktide to kill us. Sure. And spent. Yikes. Yeah, so we got thoroughly pounded by the blue-black tempo deck twice. Not ideal, and we finished with only a 2-3 record, which isn't great. I think the deck is pretty solid, though, and let's talk about it. So I like a lot of what this deck is doing. I think just having like a bunch of cool trading pieces, then gassing up with Nadu was an interesting idea. I think this deck is trying to be doing a little bit too much, in my view. I don't think we can run 3 Wastelands in this list. I think we need another mana-producing land. I also found that there was a couple of times where I wanted to get an Underground Sea, and there was definitely times where a Hedge Maze would have been good, because if you're just, I'm just going to go and get my Surveil value, right? I'm just, I've got my land set up, I've cast my spells, and now we're kind of looking for some action. Let's crack my fetch land to go and find some more action. Now, the action you're mostly looking for is Nadu. However, if you're using your Underground Mortuary, this doesn't cast Nadu. And you probably don't want to be getting lands that cast Nadu straight up anyway, because you want to be getting your basics a lot of the time, or you're getting your Bayous and things so you can cast your green-black base, which means that you want to surveil land that is going to be getting you Nadu in this sort of mid-game. So in the early game, if you don't have a turn 1 play, the Underground Mortuary is obviously the great surveil land you go for. But if you're like turn sort of 3 or 4 onwards, and maybe you're just looking for some action and you don't actually need your core colors, you just need the stuff that can get you the ability to cast Nadu, I think a Hedge Maze would work quite well there. So I think we cut this Wasteland for maybe an Underground Sea, and then you could swap. I don't know if I want to swap this. I don't think I do. But I think you cut one Wasteland for an Underground Sea, and then debatably you can cut another one for a Hedge Maze. And you could just get rid of the Wasteland package altogether, which I think is also a fine idea. That gives you another land that you get to add in. So maybe we could have a third Urza Saga instead of the Wastelands, because having one Wasteland isn't great. If you wanted to keep the Wastelands, I would probably recommend something like a Ramanap Excavator somewhere, so at least you've got this ability to sort of have a bit of an engine going on, and then you can just keep bringing back your Wastelands, getting your fetch lands, and getting all of your lands out of your deck that way. But we did lose multiple games based on our mana base this league, which is obviously not really where you want to be. Now, it wasn't just, oh yeah, our mana base doesn't work. It was, okay, our opponent is pressuring our mana base with a bunch of Wastelands, and then we're kind of getting beaten that way. So it's not like the mana base doesn't function. The mana base is fine. I just think that you can swap these things out to make it more robust against people that are attacking your mana base. Because I think the blue-black matchup that we had in the last couple of rounds, I think that matchup is relatively okay, provided we can cast our spells and we're not getting pressured too heavily by Wastelands. And I think just having a bit more insurance against that by not playing our own Wastelands would help. Now, Wasteland is going to have some useful targets. So we're going to want to hit things like Tabernacle out of the decks that have it. We're also going to want to maybe use this to pressure some of the Bug Beanstalk decks, but I think things like Leovold and Orcish Bowmasters pressure the Beanstalk decks better, and Nadu draws more cards than Beanstalk decks do anyway. So I don't think that's necessarily the issue. So I would probably be looking at cutting down on the Wastelands just to try and shore up our mana base so that we're more resilient. That extra resilience will end up giving us a decent increase in percentages against like the blue-black decks like that. In terms of the rest of the spells in the deck, you could definitely tinker with the removal package. It feels weird playing Dismember in this deck when we have access to like other black removal spells. Like normally I like Dismember when I'm playing when I'm playing with decks that don't necessarily have access to good removal colors, like your Simic decks and stuff like that. We do have access to good removal colors. So we could just be looking at having things like more pushes. I don't think another push here would be a bad idea. Now, obviously, Dismember does kill some things that push doesn't, and vice versa. But if we think about the threats in the meta right now, the big threats, things like Barragoyf, Murktide Regent. So Murktide Regent isn't nailed by either of these, so whatever. Like sometimes you can kill a 5/5 Murktide Regent or whatever. Like Delvers, Dragon's Rage Channelers, like tokens from the Corey Steelcutter Knife thing, Tamios, like there's a bunch of stuff, and I don't think Dismember is where I want to be. I would probably swap this for another push, and so I can understand possibly why we have it so that we can deal with like Maze of the Moon type effect, but I think if we've got like Once Upon a Times, a bunch of fetch lands and basics to get, and we have mana dorks, so like one forest basically means that we don't have to worry about Blood Moon for the rest of the game for the most part, because we've got a bunch of mana dorks, we've got Green Sun Zenith, we're fine. So I think I would trim this Dismember for another push. I would trim these Wastelands for some other lands. And then what am I doing in the sideboard? Again, I don't like the Dismember is kind of awkward. The Snuff Out was pretty good against Dreadnought, but the Dismember, again, I think we can just have like something a bit more flexible. I really like Sheoldred's Edict at the moment because you've got decks running Kaito and Tamiyo as well as like Baraghosts and stuff. So just having something that can flex into killing the Planeswalkers as well as the creatures is pretty good. Other than that, I think the sideboard's perfectly fine. Silent Gravestone is a choice. You can play this. You can play the... what's it called? Ghost Vacuum. That is also very good too. So that's things I consider. If you're looking for other things to add to your suite of creatures to tutor for, the Outland Liberator is something that maybe we could have done with in this one. Like, it's very good against Dreadnought and stuff. But again, something has to go for that. And I don't know what you want to take out. But overall, I quite enjoy playing this deck. I think there's a lot of promise to it. And it was basically just our mana getting sort of caught underneath us that was the real problem. I think you can shore that up quite easily by tweaking the deck. I think it's more important to not lose to these tempo-y decks with a bunch of Wastelands in than it is to have like your Wastelands in against like the lands decks, which aren't played that much right now. Like, yes, we can use these to pressure some combo decks, like Doomsday and stuff, but Doomsday is obviously going to be pretty grim for us a lot of the time anyway. So we only lost to 3 blue-black decks today, which is Legacy, I guess. And the Doomsday one is always going to be horrible for us. Like, sometimes we're going to be able to Thoughtseize. I think we did lose to the Doomsday one, didn't we? Yeah, so we could have also played it differently against the Doomsday and gotten a Thoughtseize before getting our pressure down that turn. So we maybe could have won that one if we played slightly differently. I went for an option of getting some pressure so we gave our opponent less time instead of just trying to hit what they had there and then. So I think the main takeaway from this is we need to shore up the tempo matchup, and I think this is the way we do it, by stripping these out. All right, I think I've given a pretty good account of my thoughts on this deck. I quite enjoy playing it, and I wouldn't mind playing something similar with a few tweaks in the future. Thank you again to the donor for submitting this one, and I hope you lovely people out there enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.